I do homemade meal prepping where you make bulk food for people who are really busy and do not have the time to cook. I also train household mothers, mostly women, how to maximize their finances and while at it still get the best food quality and how to cook the food itself. Currently, I roughly make between 60 to 90,000, depending on how business is and just how many things I'm doing. But it was not always like this. I've closed my business twice. I'm making terrible losses. My name is Daisy Mwende. I am the founder of Daisy's Kitchen. What I do is basically everything food. I'm a food lover. I enjoy serving people and seeing their joy as they enjoy food. So most of what I do is I serve corporate clients, mostly those who need breakfast and lunch at the workplace. And I do homemade meal prepping where you make bulk food for people who are really busy and do not have the time to cook. I also train household mothers, mostly women, how to maximize their finances and while at it still get the best food quality and how to cook the food itself. I do big events as well. I mean gatherings, it could be a meeting, it could be a get together, it could be a wedding and dinners. Basically in any meeting where food is required. I got you. Why food? My love for food was lightened up by my grandmother. Every holiday, I was those kids. We went to the village faithfully without missing. And those experiences, especially the experiences that stuck with me, were mostly the food related ones. My grandmother was very big on making us joyful with food. I learned very many things through that. I didn't pick much of it until later when I realized how much I love curating food and how it came from, I guess, a point of how much of my grandmother's food I miss. And I wanted to recreate those memories for myself after my grandmother passed on or when she was way older and she couldn't really do the foods for us anymore. I did not get any formal training to be a chef. No, none, zero. And it started in form of just a side hustle or a business. But currently, I am undertaking a culinary experience sort of training that is now formalizing my cooking and everything else. I think I started from the deep end, having to cook as a form of getting income for myself. The biggest challenges of cooking is just the idea that food is expensive and how it's done. But in reality, I tend to think that the cost of bad food and good food is the same. The difference is just what processes have been involved and how much love you put in there. So, what I've come to discover in the Kenyan households is a normal, typical Kenyan person will budget for rent, but they'll never budget for food because for them, rent is this one huge thing. So, what I train women to do is how to budget for food as actually an aspect that eats into your budget. And budgeting for it keeps you at a safe space than not actually doing it. So, what we do is you teach women how to shop and maximize the output of what they shop for. In the sense that when it comes to shopping for food, the bigger volumes you buy, the cheaper it gets. So, when you're budgeting for your food, you can have a specific quantity of money that you set aside for food, and it actually makes your life easier. And knowing how to preserve those foods is one of the biggest aspects we would like to train people to do. The growth process of making money is a learning curve. As you move forward, you learn ways of making money differently. So the thing about when you do something long enough, it teaches you how to strategize and how to do your business better. When I started this business, it was not entirely for money. Mine was to have people enjoy food. But then when you're doing business, you need to make money. The challenges that are there when you're not making money is just not knowing, not doing proper research on the client you're trying to serve, understanding if that client has the capability to pay for the quality of food you're going to bring in. Because you have to pay me enough money today for me to be able to serve you good food tomorrow. And keeping that up comes not just only at a cost, but also it comes with certain things that you have to consider. So you have to charge what food is worth, not overcharge or undercharge. My biggest moments in business was getting a grant to fund my business idea. because at that particular time, nobody even believed in what I was doing. But having eaten the fruits of what I do, I know it works. But my biggest moment also draws me back to my lowest moment, because getting these funds without mentorship, without any knowledge whatsoever on how to actually maintain those funds till I get to the next level, became my biggest nightmare, because we're in a community where young people don't have people to look up to, people to hold their hand, people to mentor them as they go. So it's for you to move forward blindly until you get it. So for me, it was the biggest highlight of my life, but that was also the second time I closed my business, despite having gotten some funding that I had no access to. This job is not without challenges. The biggest challenges of small business owners like me is lack of access to finances. For us who do it as dreams, yes, we have structures, we have results, but the banks we have today do not fund you until you have a certain threshold. And so that becomes a big challenge, because you have to now work 3 times harder to have access to the resources you need to move forward with your business. And one of the biggest challenges, and maybe people in this space can attest to this, is your time. Being a mother, I have to raise my kids, but 3/4 of the time you're working around the clock. Events happen over the weekends, so you're booked, you've been paid. So most times I take my child to work with me, because I need to also spend time with the child, and I also need to make time for my work, because then again, how am I raising these children without the money from the business? It's just, how do you balance your time between family, between work? And that's where priorities come in. For me, everything is about intentionality and having to plan ahead. Planning has become part of my life, where I have to plan everything prior. Before you deliver food for 100 people in 2 different locations, there are very many intricacies that go behind the planning process, and how to ensure all these things are done without a hitch. Sometimes it's also just the people you work with. You won't always have an A team. How do you ensure that you're working with people who share your values and who also are trying to attain the same goal you're trying to attain? So it's not without challenges. It's not a walk in the park. But this has also taught me how to relate with people better. I am someone's customer, and I am also someone's client. So it has taught me how to balance that relationship, and sometimes the advantages and the disadvantages that comes with that. And it's teaching me how to trust people really, because I've met people who are really good to me, and you realize they didn't have to, but over a period you create relationships with people that you never thought you would. And it's one of the most interesting things. Funny as it sounds, my biggest dream is to have every household enjoy whatever meal they're having, be it ugali skuma or caviar. The aspect of food is not basically what the food is, it's the joy of what sharing a meal brings. And even if you're not having to share that meal, you can have communion with your meal. And my other dream, other than just enjoying the food you eat, it's the aspect of just Kenyans budgeting for their food. It would bring a really huge shift if people really cared about budgeting for what they eat and not just food. The other impact I'd like to create is how to modernize our traditional meals. That is what began my love for food in the first place. These are the readily available foods. I mean, we just had pumpkin for lunch, and I assure you it was lovely. I think the cake is very big. But what I've learned is, if you're running a business, and especially if you're at the beginning stages of running a business, stay around people who run businesses, because 3/4 of the times the challenges are the same. It's just maybe you're selling different products or services. When you hang around people who are doing what you're doing, you'll understand that challenges are part of the process, and also you'll have people who understand what you're going through better, and it places them in a position to actually encourage you better. Also look for someone who's running a business successfully, and I mean, ask for advice, ask hard questions, be open and vulnerable about your journey, and very honest at it. It's not always going to be a good experience, really, but it does give you some form of comfort and some kind of support. I know the assumption of people not having enough money has been mentioned a lot, but like 3/4 of the times people have money but don't have the time to actually make their food. So that's a totally different, interesting problem that I solve. I feel like a huge aspect of me being here today is because of not succeeding then. If today I got funding, I would definitely open a big kitchen to serve different food needs for everyone, because food is needed in very different ways by people. There are some with the food do not know how to cook it, others with the money do not have time to cook it. And all these things can be met by just having a nice meal prepared for you by me and many other people.